Welcome everyone. This is Mark Stevenson from Coldesi. I'm the marketing guy here at Coldesi, and this is the first of our InTouch training presentations. We're starting off with our DTG customers and the C6 software, the RipPro version C6. So I have Bill Snyder, who is the celebrity in the DTG world, a celebrity technician, and he's going to do all the talking, all the educating. And then after he's all done with that part, we've also got Mark Vila. Say hello, Mark. Mark Vila is going to be talking about the Spider Mini, the new our new pre-treat machine after we're all done. Right now, I'm just going to turn control over to Bill.
All right. Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? All right. We're going to go over some stuff here now. This is the first time that we're doing this, and as all you guys registered, you were asked what you'd like to see or be trained in or kind of gone over with, and the majority of people have kind of just said they want to know the differences between C5 and C6. It sounds like a lot of you may be out there running C5 now and are interested in knowing what C6 may have to offer. So first things, I'm going to go for that. First off, I'd like to ask Mark real quick. Mark, I don't see any kind of a list of questions if there are any popping up. Will I see something like that? All right, well, let me see. While we're going on that, I'm going to go ahead and start off by explaining a little bit about the differences between C6 and C5. C5 was our first version of the software with this company that creates this software for us now. One of the main ideas behind this RIP software and the philosophy of the programmers that write it is they like to try to make this software as simple and easy for the people that just want to pull graphics in and pull them in and send them to a printer. So a lot of development has gone into both C5 and into C6 into creating cue settings that apply to, say, a dark colored shirt or a medium colored shirt that's going to give us our basic types of settings that would apply in those cases. Same thing for a white shirt that's going to not use white underbases underneath the color ink, things like that. Now on the back end, though, they know there are plenty of people in this industry that want to have complete control. They've been working in inkjet for a long time, or maybe they've been screen printing for a long time, understand the differences in cottons, and want to know that they can be able to change ink output, either decrease or increase. So on that back end, they can go into the cues and basically do whatever they want to them. You know, if you've got the C5 now currently, it doesn't quite look just like this. You've just got, you'll have a couple of cues for a color shirt. You'll have typically your best and your fast. In a nutshell, I'll explain real quick, kind of the backbone of a RIP software for printing on T-shirts deals with our print modes, and the print modes are the resolutions. Now in the normal printing world, a RIP is using resolution to create better, more high-definition prints on paper that can handle this. The higher we go in resolution, say from a 720 by 720 to a 1440 by 1440, we get 4 times the number of dots of ink going down, but they're much smaller. Well, a T-shirt can't handle that kind of resolution anyway, and what we've always needed with cotton is the ability to saturate the shirt. We need a lot of ink to go down. We do that by increasing the resolution but maintaining these large dot sizes. It gives us, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 times the amount of dots going down, but at the same size, basically equaling 4 times the amount of ink. That being said, there are really only 2 types of resolutions that we would use. There's the 720 or 1440, like for the M-series machines. When we print in a 720, we print much faster. We don't get as much ink down, but we do we do get a decent amount of ink going that, you know, depending if you're doing just promotional shirts and it's satisfactory to the people that are just going to wear the shirt one time and throw it away, then that's the way you can go and get these shirts printed much faster and still get pretty decent results. When we go to these higher resolutions, the printer's going to slow down in printing, and it's going to take more swipes as the printhead goes back and forth. It's going to saturate with more ink, giving us that brighter, more vibrant color. All right. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and maybe start answering a couple questions that we got going in here, but I will get a little bit further into it. Like I said, those resolutions, we also call them print modes. They're the basis of this entire RIP program, and all of these cues up here that we use either use one of the other print modes, but then of course there'll be other deeper settings that we can go into. Okay, Vince has a question here for us. All right. In the menu bar, you have one listed as Christine, which you show the demo on. How do you customize the settings? What happened when printing on a dark? I think you might be talking about when we do our webinars in the evenings, and you're talking about the Christina design, the girl's face that we print real large on the white shirt. To be honest, I use the basic settings that come in the C6 white quality. We do have a little bit of another difference between some of the cues. Now, like I said, we've got the resolutions. We also have color profiling that's built into these RIPs. You'll notice that some of these will say, for example, a white cotton graphic best. And well, what the best means is that it's using the highest quality resolution, so it's saturating the greatest amount of ink. But what the graphic means versus the one that just says best, we used to use a term in the industry years ago called cartoon or photo. Now we've called the cartoon more graphic. And the photos, we just don't really show the word photo anymore, but the best cues are the ones that would say photo. The difference between the color profiles on a graphic mode is the profiles are set up to print solid colors. A lot of times we may have graphic files that if it's a JPEG that's had any kind of compression and I have a solid red color, if I were to zoom into that raster design and look closely at the pixels, I might see that I have a wide variety of shades of red in that solid color. I'll have some lighter color red pixels, some darker color pixels, and what a graphic tends to do, graphic print mode does, average color there, and does its best to print solid that color and that color only. In a photo cue or just a normal best cue, it's going to try and attempt to print every single color of every single pixel that it gets so that it can handle shading and things like that. All right, let me see. The next question that I have here, Oswald is asking, what happened when printing on dark shirts?
Bill, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Are we having a bit of an issue? All right, I'm going to keep on going here. Oswald asked, what happened when printing on a dark shirt and you still see black? What causes not seeing pure white? Why do I get a lot too much white ink at times with the underbase layer regarding the what cue I use? Well, when it comes to the RIP software, the RIP is always going to output the same exact thing and nothing's going to change. Now, we have a lot of other variables in the printer, in the cotton, in the pre-treat process, so there's always a number of variances as to why we're not always getting a good, strong, solid white underbase down. And to be honest, most of the time that does not deal with the RIP software. In our C5 software, the default settings for the white underbase in the best modes, it didn't lay down as much white ink as when we optimized it. So we created a video that we have up on our site called Optimizing White Ink. that would show you how to go into your white color separation curve and boost the values basically of the weaving of print going down as the printer goes back and forth. That would increase it. In C6, those settings have become default now and actually aren't even needed. Next question I have here. Sometimes it'll happen from a print, and by the way, this is from Paul Zimmer. Sometimes it'll happen from print to print, and since you can't pause or delay between the underbase and color layer, I get more mixing. And I think what you might be talking about there, Paul, is you're probably getting a good amount of white ink down, but yet it's still a little bit wet when it comes to the color. Is that what I think I'm reading correct there? There is actually now in C6, that's one of the differences in C6 versus C5, where we have a little bit of individual control now over underbase and color. If you actually wanted to, before you send the job to the printer, you can actually rip the job once, but actually tell it not to print the color layer. Let the printer go through and do its whole printing and ejection. And then you could let it sit for a period of time, load it, go back in. You would have to then unlock the rip job. Then you could go into it and turn the underbase off and turn the color on. I'm actually not even kind of showing you these kind of things as I'm talking. The example of what I'm talking about here deals with when we're in our layer profile here. Our layer profile here, and it's in the properties of all the cues, and I might have done it really quick. You may not have seen me. I double-click the tab, but if whatever cue I'm currently clicked on, if I go to cue and properties, I'll get into this setting as well.
Hey, Bill, is this the same in C5 as in C6, the menus that you're looking at right now?
What I've just gone into, basically, like from settings, general, all of these things down here, print mode overrides, yes, that looks the same, but this layer profile is one of the new options in C6. And coming in here and clicking on the show bitmap processing options, I am actually going to see, this will look familiar to some C5 customers. We had this kind of control over the underbase, but not the color. In C5, it was called underbase application details. The difference now when I come to layer profile is I come in here and choose underbase. All of these settings here are what apply to the underbase, so forth, these floods plus the actual print mode or the resolution being used. And then I can click on the color tab and have this similar type control here. The other thing that's new about C6 is you see how I've got my actual different channels in here. Before I rip something, I can come in here and uncheck them, and it will actually not print them. So that's what I was talking about by having more control on the white and on the color layers that we didn't have in C5. Let me see. That's before I go deeper into that, I want to kind of continue back on to a few of the questions that I've got coming in. Let's see. Okay, Vince has another question here for me. Your DTG Eagle that you have, what settings is best to print that on a dark shirt? And if I think you're referring to the Mosaic Eagle with all the bright color and stuff, that is probably the perfect example of the most extreme print that you do out of a DTG, and we print that design very large. But again, we don't actually go in and change any of the settings. We do, one of the guy here, Chad, that actually does a lot of the sample printing, I know he told me that he uses color shirts, or no, actually, because we do it on black shirts, he's using the black shirts, and he uses the graphic best cue for that design now. The real key, again, like I said, is we get enough underbase, or we get a good amount, the right amount of pre-treat down to get a good layer of white down in one pass. You know, the color kind of takes care of itself next. I guess since we helped kind of come up with these basic settings, not basic settings, but these middle of the road settings when it's on the types of shirts that we use on a regular basis. We go for them. The idea of having perfect settings in a RIP software that'll work across the board, we'll never be able to have anything like that. There's just too many variables from shirt manufacturer to shirt manufacturer, and really not so much just the manufacturer of shirt, but the way the cotton is woven, the type of dye that's used in the cotton. Those are the kind of variables that will make the ink react differently, and then why we'll have the settings in the RIP that allow us to go in and kind of tweak to increase and decrease the amount of ink.
Yep. So Bill, we've seen like one of the obvious differences in that layer control panel between C5 and C6. Are there any other big kind of obvious or important differences?
You know what? I want to cover those real quick. Actually, I tend to kind of skip over them since I'm a Photoshop user. I don't use it a lot. There is one thing and a few things that have been added to C6 just for ease of people that are getting into the industry that may not know Photoshop or have not or don't even have it. Let me go ahead and pull up a graphic file here.
While he does that, can everybody raise their hands that would you consider yourself kind of a power user of Photoshop or Illustrator? It'll give us a good idea of how to tailor these classes in the future.
All right, well, while I'm waiting for the preview to show up, and this is actually a pretty large, high-resolution image that I brought in a Photoshop file, what the C6 software has in it now, if you don't use Photoshop and not very familiar with it, this now comes with a program called GIMP. For those of you who are not familiar with GIMP, it's a freeware graphic program that's been on the market for a while. And when I first heard about it, I thought a free graphic program, that sounds pretty, pretty lame to me. But somebody convinced me to download it and try it, and actually for a free program, it's really, really good. What we have the ability to do now in that, either GIMP or if I have Photoshop installed, I can actually bring a graphic in here, but if I see something about this graphic that's not quite right, I can right-click on it and I can actually edit it in GIMP, that program, and it's going to automatically open up GIMP here in a minute, but it's opening up this graphic file in GIMP for me. What I can do is I can actually make edits to the graphic. If I just need to erase some pixels or airbrush something out, I can click Save, and it actually will send the graphic file right back over here to the RIP.
That's awesome. So more of like a workflow kind of a thing.
Right. And the same goes true for Photoshop. If you're a Photoshop user, it's the same thing. You didn't pop up on a right click, but I can, when the graphic is selected, open it in Photoshop, make a edit, make a change, make a fix, and send it back over to the RIP with those changes.
Okay. And is that something that you could do in both a C5 and C6?
The only thing that I could do in C5 that I'm talking about right now was we could send it over to Photoshop, but it was rather memory intensive, and I know it had issues from time to time, and it's working a lot better now in the C6 software. This might be the first time I've ever opened GIMP on this computer, so it seems like it's doing a few pre-launch setups here. While it's doing it, I will also mention, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with a plugin, a Photoshop plugin called Fluidmass. Fluidmass was actually created by some guys that worked with Photoshop, and it's a program designed for cutting out images. Perfect example is a picture of a person with spiky hair, and they're standing in front of a bunch of trees, and you need to cut out their hair. Cut them out, get the trees out of the background without removing the wrong bits of hair and stuff like that. This program's pretty intuitive. When the image comes in, it lets you start clicking on the screen and stuff, and it will draw outlines of these objects and kind of give you a preview of what it's going to cut out, what it's going to show you. Let me see. I'll show you that here in a minute. Here is the GIMP program. Now, obviously, it doesn't look as sophisticated as Photoshop, to be honest with you, I've not used it much myself. There are so many tutorials out on the web. If you just Google GIMP tutorials, you'll see so many YouTube videos and stuff on how to use it. And then, basically it's just a question of finding the tools that are in a few different locations. It does a lot of the things that Photoshop does.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the great things about having this interaction with GIMP is you can just, you could delete the Coldesi logo and replace it with another one in real time. And then once you close it, it's already loaded up into the rep.
That's exactly correct. Let me try that. Let me do that again here too. I'll show it with Photoshop. And I should have grabbed the butterfly. Okay. Under Jobs, send to Photoshop, and if I had Photoshop open, it would have probably already come up. Here, it's got to launch Photoshop for me, just as if I had right-clicked on a file in Windows and said, or double-clicked on a Photoshop file, and it opened it up automatically. And I may have too much going on right now with being online.
I think you do. I'm looking at what's on the bottom of your screen, Bill. I think you do have a lot going on.
All right. Photoshop to open, and it looks like it's still trying to open the design. So with running this webinar right now is
taking up a lot. So
yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about some of the differences between C5 and C6. So far we've got the layers, we've got the great connection with GIMP, we've got a good connection with Photoshop. Are there any other highlighted differences that you want to cover?
If the plugins, for one, if some of the C5 customers were familiar with there are Photoshop plugins and there are Illustrator plugins and Corel Draw plugins that would allow us to send a graphic just directly over to the RIP. They did not work for 64-bit systems. They only worked for 32-bit systems, and that was all worked out in C6. So now they're fully functional in 64-bit operating systems.
And now we have stars. And again, in the tools you have available, you can actually add a border to the stars if you want to, or any part of this design. There's a border. Just choose the color. Maybe choose white. Maybe decrease the.
All right.
You have 10 on this.
One of the other things I think, though, that I might want to talk about with a few other things with the C6 is the importing the graphic file. The preview in the C5 used to work to generate a 300 dpi Photoshop file at the 12 by 14 inches. And what we've got now, when it comes in, it does not try to generate that, but just like a simple low-resolution JPEG. So we end up getting a much quicker preview showing up. In C5, sometimes it might take 30 seconds to see a preview when the image comes in, much quicker in C6. They also increased the processing time, too, so when we rip large files, they are processing much faster, too.
Say weave structure here, like something like this PS.0015.
For the most part, I think we've covered. I can go in and we can talk a little bit more about layers. Let me bring in a file again here.
55 here.
Now, sometimes, to be honest, didn't know that you could do it in C6 or C5 either. And I would get asked a lot too, but once a graphic file's ripped, and even you've printed it one time, you want to end up going back and making a change, but typically we figure once it's ripped, it's ripped. We can, after we've printed a file, go back in there and unlock it, basically. And show you an example here real quick. If I have a RIP only here, processing this job.
16.
And of course, if I had actually said print, or if I come back and right-click here and choose print again after it's done ripping, we know it comes down to the bottom here, down to the job result.
Bill, no, but you and Mark. Mark, so 14.
Yeah, I can actually bring it back up.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
And I can unlock it. The way that works, if I right-click, I come to Open Page, and it's as if I had just imported it again. It will stay the size that I made. It'll stay in the location that I put it, but it's basically not ripped anymore. Now, the reason or the advantage for that is, like I was saying with layers, if I wanted to print just this underbase and let the platen sit for 5 minutes, then I would go to the properties first, and I would come over here into layer profile. There we go. And then I can come in here and underbase, uncheck this. That's now turning the underbase profile off. Then I click OK, come in here or rip or print, and it's going to, basically treat it like I've just set it up. It's only creating the color layer because I unchecked the underbase. Now, granted, that's a color layer intended to go on an underbase, but point being said, I can send this over to the printer and let it print just that color. Come back in. I actually kind of would have done that the opposite way. After it's done printing, it dropped down here. I would drag it back up here like I do some of these others. And then I would do what I just showed you a few minutes ago, where I come to Open Page, and that unlocks it. Then I can come back into the layer settings again. I can turn back on what I want, I can turn off what I don't want, and I can reprocess the job, and then I can send it to the printer again. So that's kind of where I was saying that we get more control over these things. There was a print mode overrides in C5 as well, but it didn't seem to specify whether it was overriding a white underbase or it was overriding a color. And now here in C6, if I want to override it and I go to layer profiles, I've got the control to specify and go back and forth there. To be honest, I'm still kind of learning to use this. It's one of those things where I don't realize the importance of this until I've printed something and I come across that desire that, oh, I wish I could just print the underbase first, and then decide later whether I want to print the white underbase or not. Still kind of getting used to these applications, but I think people in the that actually do production probably see it better than I do. As far as differences between C5 and C6, I think I've covered the basics on what's different, what C6 has versus C5. Another thing that I do hear a lot of people talking about it that maybe they don't realize, and this is true for C5 and for C6, is the templates themselves. These templates that are a platen configuration. As editing them and changing them, or even how to create them, and I think a lot of people might not even realize that they can do that. For example, right here, where we can actually, on our quick fly access menu here, right now I'm in the 2-up, and the 2-up means that I can import a graphic. It'll go to 1. That means I can then go back to File and import another graphic that'll go to 2. If I'm using the 2-up same, that means when I import a graphic, it's going to go to both. We can go in and change all of these kind of settings here in the templates. I'm going to be showing that here in a minute. But here, like I said, on the same templates, any change I make is going to happen to both graphics on both platens because of the idea being, of course, that we're running production.
And that goes for 2 platens or 4 platens like we do in the live demonstrations too, right, Bill?
Exactly. What I'm about to go in and show is where we can actually change all of these types of things. In this template here now, I have complete control over everything. Now, if I'm working with an M2, I don't need to change it, but this is where I'd come in and change for the different size print area. If I had an M4 and an M2, the M4 actually prints with, instead of 2 platens in a row, I have another row of 2 more of this size platen. I can actually print to the printer simply by changing my length from 18 to the 39, I believe that it is. Then I can duplicate platens and add them. For platen size, for platen editing and stuff like that, here's where I control my size of the platen. So if I had some kind of custom platen setup, or I have a way that I'm putting coasters on my adult platen, little beer koozies or something, and I'm printing on those, and I want to try to make a template that's more specific, I come in and I hit enter on that width, change the size of it. I could duplicate the same thing on the other platen if I need to. Update it. To change the placement of it, my positioning is from the left or from the top, so I can lower things down. If I want to add a platen, actually with this platen selected here, I have the option to duplicate one down. Won't let me duplicate one right because there's already one right, but I hit that, duplicates the platen down. Same thing here, duplicate down.
That's great. So Bill, if you were doing a series of canvases, or if you had a regular job doing, like you said, coasters, you could basically set this all up and save it?
Correct. Once I click Save or Save As, I can actually make multiple templates. So I could name it that this is done specifically for the beer koozies or something like that.
Nice.
Now, the other individual controls I have over these platens, right now they all are labeled 1. That means that if I import a graphic, it's going to go to every single platen labeled 1. If I want a layout that's going to be different, then I would select this platen over here and change its label to 2. If I wanted the same thing here and here, and the other thing to be on these two, anything with the second label is going to get the second graphic file coming in. If I wanted them all different, then I would just be making this one 3 and this one 4, and would have to import 4 times.
So that's like 4 different names on a sports jersey kind of a thing.
Correct. The other thing is each individual platen itself have the ability to how we import, how they scale. Leave as own means it's whatever Photoshop specified the size. Scale to fit always means it stretches it to fit the best proportionately in the platen. And then scale to fit, I believe, which we use as default, means it'll only change the size of it if it comes in larger than the platen. The other option too is rotate. So I can have every time a graphic comes into this platen here, it'll automatically rotate 90 degrees, which I believe is counterclockwise. I believe 270 is clockwise, 180. So I can customize the rotation on import. And then also where it comes in, I find this one not to be as helpful. I think center is always best because we tend to custom move it around from there. But again, it's individual. I could have one platen rotate and the other platen rotate in the opposite direction. I've seen people do that for the sleeve platens because they'll take one shirt and have the long sleeves draped across the 2 platens on the one base, but they want the graphics to counter-rotate one another because of the way they're going on the sleeve. Okay. As you save them and save them as different names, you're just going to keep populating this list down here, and once it's been saved, you've always got the ability to come in here and just select it, and that'll become your template that you're using now. All right, I've kind of gotten away from questions. Let me go back. I apologize. I've probably got a few piling up here on me. All right, let me see where I am on that. Okay, I think the next question there would be Paul, and Paul is asking, how much does proper or improper pre-treating technique have to do with puddling of the white ink during the underbase printing? In reality, the more underbase we put down once we've got enough, it will actually affect it a little bit. The more and more pre-treat that I put down, the more the white ink's going to tend to crash and stay up. Now, it tends to be a thing that begins to level off, and typically the first problems that I see with over pre-treating are just it does not look good. You've got a lot of residue there. Unfortunately, the one trick about underbasing is that we have to get the right amount of white ink down to do good. If we're putting color on top of it and we put too much white ink down, we're going to get that puddling and get that marbling effect, and so the right balance needs to be found. But what I find is if I use the same brand of shirts on a regular basis, if I find the right settings and the right amount of pre-treat, it always tends to follow suit on the on that same brand of shirt. Olivia has a question here. Hi there, is there another audio interfering and it's kind of hard to understand you? I don't know if maybe...
I think we got that fixed.
Maybe others are having... Okay, all right, good. All right, Timothy has a question here. Printing like a purple. Okay, gray 30% to 60% in RGB, and CMYK palettes are printing like a purple. This is on black shirts. What settings should I be looking like on your butterfly? All the gray would be light purple blend. So in order to get some really great prints, let me see, I got to expand that out a little. So in order to get some really great prints, and with all due respect to Ron, setting it and forgetting it is not the best thing to do, depending on the graphic and what needs to be done. Correct? I guess in the real world of production, there really isn't a true setting it and forgetting it. There's always going to be curves thrown at us. But why don't I sure... Paul, what are you C6 or C5? Because I do know like what you're talking about with grays having a hint of color to them, and I know purple would tend to be the more common thing I'd see. I'd also see some greens too. It just depends when conversions happen from RGB to CMYK, and keep in mind conversions may be happening on the Photoshop side. They're also going to be happening here in the RIP. That RGBs, when they convert to a CMYK, which is our initial output at the end of the day. If you've just got a little bit more cyan than you do magenta and yellow, you're going to get a bluish tint. If you have a little bit more magenta than you do, you're going to get a more of a purple tint. The C6 profiles that they've been working on here are a lot better now for that. That has always been kind of one of the tricky things in direct-to-garment, mainly because constantly being driven to push for brighter, more vibrant color. So the color profiles, the inks, the chemical process itself is all geared towards picking up the slightest variance of color here and there, and sometimes the unfortunate side effect can be seen mostly by grays. Something that we're working on, and something actually that I want to start getting into more of putting out a document on. But I think primarily these new profiles in C6 have got a lot of that worked out. Let's see, we got next question here is with Vince. In the bitmap override, what underbase white percentages do you prefer? Also, how do you make sure that your print image is centered onto the platen? Mine are about 1/4 of an inch over to one side. Do full size. Okay. First part of that in bitmap override, what underbase white percentage? Okay, that if you're talking about the percentage of well, basically opacity, or what we see in Max Ink, I tend to go with the 90%. We tend to, and let me see, I'll bring that up and make sure we are talking about the same thing. Its name changed from C5 to C6. And I believe the default comes in, well, I've got it here at 100 right now. What QMI and Graphis Best. Okay. With the shirts that we print on here for samples, we print on those ring spun anvils, which basically is the material that helps the white ink stand up real well. It's a finer woven material, which makes a higher thread count, more density of fibers, so the white ink sits up on it better. I run 90, but this is one of those variables that changes from shirt to shirt. If you're doing something like a Gildan Ultra Cotton, which are very rough, lots of texture in that shirt, you need to boost it up to 100. I very rarely see that I'd be any reason to go any lower than that. The second part of your question dealt with centering on the platens. That, again, is what I want to do more of, showing people the template editor and using the template editor. The reason being, every single machine seems to have a little bit of variance. If your machine's off by a 1/4 of an inch or it's off by 1/8 of an inch, it's always going to be that way. And if it's off by 1/8 of an inch to the right, then I need to just kind of push the platen over a 1/4 of an inch to the left.
Yeah, that's good.
Then that's where I can come in here and I can select the that, and I can bring that down just a little bit and update and move all of those over just a little bit to compensate for that. Once I save that, it's going to be that way now, and I'm not going to have to worry about that anyway, because this is dead center regardless in the RipPro's eyes. So it's all really a question of if that platen is truly relative and truly underneath that portion of the print area.
Hey, Bill, we're going to go on like this for about another 5 to 7 minutes. I just wanted to let you know we're winding down on time. It's gone pretty fast. So if there are questions here, I want you to think hard while you've got Bill on the line and ask him.
All right. Well, the next question, I think I just answered Paul's. Olivia's put a few questions in here. Okay, so does the amount of the ink being laid down contribute to the durability of the ink on the shirt? All right, that is an interesting question, and it's one that people don't often talk about. Typically when training people in this process, we have to give people guidelines to go by. But the reality is, the more ink I put down on a shirt, the more I'm creating. And this is typically underbase printing that I'm talking about. The more that I'm creating a layer on the surface of the shirt. When we cure the shirt, part of the process of curing, not only are we having a chemical reaction with the binders binding the pigment to the cotton, we're also evaporating out the water base. The more ink that we have down there, truly the more time we needed, and obviously we don't have a lot of time in production, so it's why we need to be able to get them cured without them taking too long. But it is relative. The more ink that would go down on something, really, the more time it would need to cure. Olivia also says, we've printed on shirts, but the ink washes away after a few washes. Those are prints with underbases, and if I know what she's describing, it probably looks like a little bit of a cracking, kind of a dandruff type of effect, or a sunburned skin that's peeling. There are quite often, it depends on the shirt manufacturers again. I see sometimes particular colors of shirt that do it, that dyes might affect it, and these are not things that are normal, but I do see from time to time. Sometimes shirts are scotch guarded, sometimes they're made stain resistant, sometimes there's a little bit of blend of some other material in the shirt too that might not necessarily get disclosed on the tag. I guess you really have to know more from your shirt manufacturer first off. The other thing is really just maybe a little bit more time might be needed on the heat press. And of course our general rule of thumb on the heat press for our curing and for our pre-treating process is 340 degrees Fahrenheit. If we're doing a hover process where we hover for 30 seconds, or some people say a minute, me personally, if I've got a lot of white underbase and color ink going down, I'll hover the heat press over it, and it's probably only 1/4 of an inch off of it for about 30 seconds, but then I will go ahead and cure it for the full 3 minutes. The way I see it, overdoing it, as long as it doesn't scorch the ink or scorch the cotton, or the dye in the cotton, it only betters the durability of the ink.
Yeah, and Bill, that's kind of why we keep ordering the same brand and the same type of shirt over and over again, is to make sure we take to take at least that part out of the equation.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not in the business of selling people shirts that they want
Right.
this type, this type, this type. We're basically showing what the printer can do. So yeah, we tend to lack a little bit of the experience of the great range of variety of cotton T-shirts that are out on the market. Let's see. Olivia also said that they're pre-treated and cured correctly. So, and this is Olivia that I know actually down in Belize. Seeing the way they're doing the process. Olivia, that may be something that you and I will need to talk a little bit more after. You've got my email address, so just shoot me over an email, and if not today, maybe tomorrow we can talk about stuff.
Okay, we got about 2 minutes more for questions, so any last ones?
Let me look. Vince was just wanting to chime in on that. It's her shirt's a poly blend, and then again, like I said, I know Olivia. I've actually been down there, and if I remember correctly, pretty much everything she was doing down there is 100% or close to it. So.
Okay, terrific. All right, Bill, anything from the questions that we got before the presentation, or any other differences between the C5 and C6 that you want to highlight before we sign off?
Yeah, let me just say real quick, there were a couple questions that didn't quite fit into the topic of the RIP, but it was about printing on canvas and printing on non-textiles, and that is something that we'll probably think about in the future, of having one of these webinars specifically on. But in a nutshell, I can say this: the idea behind printing on canvases and rigid goods is that we're not printing on cotton that's extremely absorbent on ink, and the idea is we just need a lot less ink going down. And the trick to that is treat it like a white shirt. But if we come into our print mode overrides, where am I at? I'm not in the right place. We have a setting. Where is that setting? It's not showing up there. We have a setting called Max Ink. It should be under print mode overrides. I may not have my screen set to show all stuff. That setting, max options, or I'm sorry, max ink, we can go in and we can set that to decrease the amount of ink. So the typical output for a white shirt is going to be the most that an inkjet printer can probably even put down. And yep, there we go. There it is. When I come in here and turn this max ink setting on, I start lowering this down, decreasing this value. The highest it goes is 400. When I take it down to 200, when I take it down to 100, I'm extremely decreasing the amount of ink going down, and that's my biggest trick for printing on canvases and printing on rigid goods. That's about all I think I've got for you guys today. I think we'll go ahead and evaluate on how we did on this, and any of your comments and stuff that you have about what you'd like to see more in these webinars and stuff. We're just getting started learning how to do it this way and how to educate people further. So we'd love to hear what everybody has to say about this presentation today.
That'd be great. And you guys are all actually going to get a survey. Please fill it out. Before you go, though, what I want to do is I want to take it over to Mark Vila, because we have been talking about about pre-treating. That seems to be a good 40% of the questions that we've got are about pre-treating, and I know that Mark got something to talk about with our new pre-treatment machine, the Spider Mini. Are you ready for us, Mark?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm gonna switch it over to you, and you can take it away for just a few minutes.
Sounds good. I just want to confirm you can see my screen here?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So what we're looking at here is the Spider Mini. That's our new automatic pre-treat machine. Just to introduce myself for a moment, I'm Mark Vila with Coleman & Company, and I work in marketing on the supply side, and that's right where this lands. So what we just wanted to do is I'll have Mark share the link. This is just spidermini.com, so you can feel free to take a look deeper into this later on. But this is the answer to a lot of pre-treat issues. Pre-treat is something that, as you know, has a learning curve, and it's hard to just bring some help in or hire somebody and say, hey, pre-treat these 100 shirts for me. And with the Spider Mini automatic pre-treat machine, you can. So you get more accurate pre-treating every time, consistent pre-treating every time, and finally the ability to do it in any environment. We have ours feet away from our DTG M2. It's literally feet away. So I'm just going to play a short little intro video. It's dramatic. We think it's pretty cool and exciting. And then at the end of it, Mark will make sure the Spider Mini link goes up. And you can click on it, and you'll see a little, when you go to the page, you'll see a contact us button, or you'll see these little buttons to talk to a sales rep, and you can call us up. We've got young ladies on the phone now ready to answer your calls and questions, or you can fill out a form and tell us when it's a better time to call you. So without further ado, I'll play the little intro video, and it's not very long, so thanks for watching. Okay, so there's our fun, dramatic short video for the Spider Mini, just to kind of show a little bit of what it looks like and how it works. But Demi, who's one of the sales reps for the Spider Mini, that's her in the video. She's never pre-treated a shirt. She's never held the pre-treat gun. However, she was able to get on that machine and use it the first time we showed her how. So it's easy to use, and it's an awesome price. So Mark, post the link up, and I'll pass it on to you if anyone has any questions. Mark, have you seen any questions pop up right away?
Nope, I got nothing. If you have any, we'll leave the presentation on for just a moment after we sign off here in a sec, and you guys can just type in your questions. Got one. How can I pre-treat a sleeve with that machine? I think I'm going to let Mark send you an email about that, Olivia. I know that there's some techniques that we've been working on to help pre-treat different things.
I mean, a short answer is if you saw her move she moved the dial back and forth and about halfway through there, and that determines the length. So you could actually put you could put a sleeve on sideways, and you would get the full length of the sideways pre-treat on that, which is, if we look on this page here, we've got the dimensions of that platen, so you'd be able to do a 15.5 inch on a sleeve and just make it about 6 inches wide on how much you need it, how much you would spray back and forth.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, I just want to say thanks everybody for attending. We're very interested in your feedback and what you'd like to see differently or what you'd like to see next time, because there will be more of these, and we want you guys to know how to use the software that you got from us, be well educated on how to use the printer, and also aware of the cool and new stuff that we come out with, like the Spider Mini. So I'm just going to say thanks, have a good day, and we hope to hear from you soon.